I don't know about you, but I sometimes find myself in the fetal position, sucking my thumb and crying as I hear about some of the games coming to Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, and meanwhile I'm left playing some of the flowery, wimpier games on Wii. Now, don't get me wrong either, because I will gladly stack any of Nintendo's flagship titles, your Galaxies, your Pikmins, against any game on any console. But at the same time, I occasionally want to sit down and play a game that I can't co-op with my little sister, if I had a little sister. Thankfully, developer Rainbow Studios has heard all my cries, apparently even through all that thumb-sucking, and has answered with Deadly Creatures, a game that's very novel, very fresh, and it's going to creep you out. That's because in this ambitious action-adventure you won't find any guns or giant boobs, but you will discover a venomous scorpion and a hair-raising tarantula, both of them playable. It's a really original, compelling concept, powered by high production values, and these are production values you're going to spot from the very beginning of the game. THQ contracted Hollywood A-listers Dennis Hopper and Billy Bob Thornton to voice the two human characters in the game, and as you can hear in this opening intro, they really do set the mood for the action to come.
I think it was just my bad choices and bad instincts that got me this time.
The two actors also drive the storyline, which is told exclusively through beautiful in-game cinematics. And I do have to say that I really like the story that Rainbow's come up with. Not only is it a very interesting tale involving prospectors digging out in the desert, and murder even, but it's very dynamic. So as you're playing with the tarantula and the scorpion, you see these huge looming humans in the background, and the tale simply unfolds as they talk. But unfortunately, the humans are used primarily as story devices. Still, you will enjoy the tale all the way to the end, even if the final act feels a bit anticlimactic. As you can no doubt see, Rainbow's attention to detail carries over to the graphics of the game world itself. This is a beautiful game on all fronts, and I'm talking artistically and technically. It really pushes Nintendo's console. The character models are insanely detailed for a Wii game, and just look at some of these silky smooth animations as the tarantula strafes around. Meanwhile, the levels are extremely varied in design, artistically rendered, and filled with geometry. Just take a look at some of these backgrounds as proof. And every bit as cinematic as some of the cutscenes are the Scorpion's finishers. Using the Wii Remote to make gestures, you can inflict some serious damage onto enemies, and these moves are not for the squeamish. Unfortunately though, there are some presentational downsides. The detailed graphics occasionally arrive at the expense of the frame rate. There are hiccups now and again that you're going to have to contend with throughout the adventure. The streaming nature of levels results in load times between areas, sometimes as long as 5 seconds, and that can really break the flow. The camera system, which is usually pretty good, occasionally catches on a wall and transforms what should be a simple enemy fight into a much more complex undertaking. And there are some disappointing bugs, and I'm not referring to those of the insect nature. For example, some enemies may clip through walls as you're fighting them, and you may have to wait for them to re-emerge before you can finish them off. You know what though, even with these issues, the game is still a whole lot of fun to play. The controls are tight and responsive. You move the characters around with the nunchuck's analog stick, and Rainbow has smartly mapped the primary attack function to the A button rather than waggle. As you play, you'll quickly identify the control differences between the Scorpion and the Tarantula, the former of which is a tank, but he's slow. Meanwhile, the Tarantula is much quicker, but he can't block attacks. Secondary, more damaging moves like the Scorpion's tailspin, not to mention his cinematic finishers, are performed via waggle, and that usually feels pretty good. That said, I do prefer to play as the Tarantula, not only because he's quicker, but because his special moves are mapped to the Wii Remote pointer. You simply aim and shoot to sling between walls, or to send off a web shot at enemies and then pounce. There's no doubt about it, you're going to be doing a lot of fighting in Deadly Creatures. You'll face off against everything from lizards to wasps to rats and everything in between. But thankfully there's also a very fun exploration mechanic. There's actually a bit of fun Metroidian design in place here, because as you start the game, your characters have limited abilities, but as you progress you make upgrades, which allow you access to previously unreachable areas. One major difference between this and Metroid Prime 3 though is that Prime's world is fully connected, whereas in Deadly Creatures, there are 10 different levels. It takes fewer than 10 hours to get through those levels, and there's no multiplayer component to speak of, but you can at least go back through the environments and collect grubs for extra unlockables. With its ultra-stylized presentation and fun gameplay mechanics, Deadly Creatures is exactly the type of third-party effort that Nintendo fans need to be supporting. For our full written review, check out IGN.com.